432, your piano and you. Everything you should know about tuning your piano to A432 should you decide to do so. Hi, I'm Carl Radford. I'm a registered piano technician, and lately I've been getting a lot of questions and some requests for A432. Why 432? Well, there are a lot of theories floating around on the internet about how there's a connection, a spiritual or mathematical or natural connection to the earth through this particular pitch. And I'm not going to offer my opinion on that one way or the other. That's up for the artist or the performer to decide for themselves. There's already plenty of information and misinformation on the internet you can read up on to find out more about that. And so just to be clear, I'm not necessarily recommending that you should or shouldn't tune your piano to 432. My job as a piano technician is to give the client or the artist what they want, and if you want 432, then I'll give you 432 if I can. But there are a few things you should know first about how it will affect your piano before you do. So first, I would like to clear up a little confusion about what 432 is and what it isn't. One of the fallacies I've read about on the internet is that 432 is a tuning, or 432 is a temperament. And there's a little confusion about that. That's not correct. 432 is a pitch or a frequency. 432 is not a tuning. 432 is a pitch or a frequency. It's not a temperament. Those are distinctly different but related things. So if A432 is a pitch, what is a pitch? If I strike or pluck a string on a piano, let's say the A above middle C, and it vibrates and creates a tone, a musical tone, it vibrates really fast, about 440 swings of the string per second. That's the pitch of that string. That's the tone that comes out at 440 swings of the string. If I lower the tension of that string just a little bit so that now it vibrates a little slower, the pitch is a little lower. Let's say we tune it to 432. So I loosen the string so that it vibrates only 432 times a second. Then the pitch is a little lower. So the faster that string vibrates, the higher the pitch, and the slower the string vibrates, the lower the pitch. So just to show you what the difference is between 440 and 432, I've tuned this string, this right string, on this A, the A above middle C. I've tuned it to 440, and that's 440 vibrations of that string per second. And the string next to it, still an A, but I've tuned that to 432. So you can hear how much lower that is. So here's 432, and here's 440. If I play them now both together, this is what it sounds like, the difference between them. Now, that's a lot. That's almost a quarter step. So if I'm in the home and I'm tuning a piano, and I encounter a piano that's somewhere a quarter step flat like that, and the customer wants it to 440 or thereabouts, I'm going to have to tune it once just to get it up there, and then go over it again to do a fine tuning. So that's quite a substantial difference between 432 and 440. So I'm going to tune that one string down to the other so you hear how far it has to go. It's a long ways. So that's just one pitch or one frequency on one particular note, the A above middle C. It's interesting to note that the history of the pitch of the piano has gone up and up and up and up over the centuries. In the Baroque era, around the 1700s or so, the pitch was around 415. And then the French standard was 435 in the 1860s, and then later it kept climbing higher and higher and higher until in 1926 it was established as the international pitch standard of A440. When I first started tuning in my area here in Chicago, Orchestra Hall tuned their pianos to A442 and in consequence, many of the universities surrounding it also did as well. So 442 was the standard around here, and they felt that that was because whatever conductor was here at the time felt that that was the best resonance for that particular hall. So, and also the string players tend to like the pitch a little higher too. My whole career, it's always gone up, never down until now. This is the first time in my whole tuning career that the pitch anyone's ever requested anything lower. So, 432 is a pitch, not a temperament. So what is a temperament then? Now if I tune that first pitch at 432 or 440, whatever I decide, I then, as a piano tuner, would tune the middle octave of the piano, and I can move those notes around anywhere I want and all kinds of patterns, kind of like a template. But they're all centered around that first pitch. But a temperament is different. I'm adjusting all the notes within the octave, so they're kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, so they all make sense musically. Now I could tune that temperament to many types of temperaments. There's hundreds, literally. It could be mean tone, it could be equal temperament, it could be well temperament. There's lots of different kinds of temperaments. But it's still all centered around that one first pitch that we initially tuned, that A, but it could be higher or lower depending on where they tune the pitch, but the temperament can be many different things. By the way, I do a lot of comparisons of various types of temperaments in other videos on this channel. If you're interested, give it a listen. It's really fascinating, I think. So 432 is a pitch, not a tuning. So then what is a tuning? So after I've tuned my first pitch, my first 432 or 440 or whatever I decide, then I tune the temperament like I talked about before in the middle of the piano, and from there I tune the rest of the piano, the octaves going up and the octaves going down from that template, from the temperament, but it's all centered around the first pitch that I tuned. It could be any tuning. Tunings are a compilation of the pitch, the temperament, and the octaves, and all the strings being tuned on the piano. So 432 is not a tuning, it's one pitch that the tuning, whatever tuning you decide, and there could be many different types of tunings, are all centered around. So here's the big question. Should you tune your piano to 432? Well, the answer is it depends on what kind of music you're playing. Classical, jazz, new age, if you're in harmony with the universe, yoga music, it really depends. And the reason is this. So modern pianos have a scale design that's designed for pitches around 440. So what's a scale design? It's kind of the math and the physics that go into the strings and the plate and the tension of the piano. And it's all kind of designed to be at a higher tension around 440. If you start playing classical music on lower tension, around 432 or around there, it's going to sound a little more lifeless. It's going to sound a little more muted. So it may not be something you want to do if you're playing classical music on a modern piano. Now on a forte piano or a harpsichord, that's a different story. They don't have the cast iron plate. They're not at a higher tension. They're at a much lower tension because they're made mostly of wood. So in that case, it might make sense to tune the harpsichord, say, at 415 or 432. But with a modern piano, with a scale design that's intended for a higher pitch, then you might want to think about that for classical music. Now, if you're playing new age music or something that you've written that is intended to be more in harmony, let's say, with the universe, and you want it at a lower tension, that's fine. That might work, because if I take that modern piano and I tune it down a little bit, it's going to sound a little calmer, a little more muted, like I said. So in that case, that might be what you want. You might want something that's a little more soft and a little more mellow for that type of music. So should you decide to tune your piano to 432, the main thing you should consider is that it will destabilize your piano. By that I mean it's such a big change in the tension of the piano that it will take a couple tunings for it to get stabilized, for it to stay where the tuner puts it. So that's something to consider. If you're going to be going back and forth between 440 and 432, say you're playing with other instruments and they want to play at 440 or whatever, or you're playing classical and then you want to play new age music or whatever, or your own music that's been written in a lower tuning, it's going to be hard to go. You can go back and forth, but it's going to be a lot of tunings. It's going to be kind of hard on the piano. It's going to destabilize the piano. So you pretty much have to make up your mind, I would think, if you're going to be one or the other, because you really can't go back and forth. Another factor to consider is concert venues. If you run a concert venue, one thing to consider, very important, is how many times the piano will have to be tuned for that one concert tuning at 432. Let me explain that. So if I have a piano that's been regularly tuned to 440, it's probably stable at 440. And if somebody requests 432, and I have to come in and tune that piano down to 432, it's going to be very unstable. And when the pianist comes to play it, it's going to go out of tune right away. So I have to tune it a couple of times before the concert. And then after the concert, I have to tune it probably back to 440. And then once again to stabilize it again. So you're talking at least 4 tunings, maybe more. If the pianist is playing really hard on the piano, it's going to knock it out of tune if it's not stable. And so that's something you really have to strongly consider for a concert venue. It will destabilize the piano and cost you a lot more. So, should you tune your piano to 432? Well, that's not for me to say. It's up to you as the artist or the client, whatever makes you happy. The main things to consider are the type of music you're playing. Are you playing classical or jazz or yoga music or new age music? Then you might have different choices. So another thing to consider is that if the piano is tuned lower, it will have a little weaker quality or a little less resonant quality. And so you have to consider if that's something that you want to sacrifice to create that more placid tonal harmony with the universe. You also want to consider that it's going to destabilize the piano, and you might have to go back and forth. If you're going to go back and forth, probably not a good idea. If you're going to keep it one way or the other, then great, no problem. But it is going to take a couple more tunings, and it is going to destabilize the piano for a little while. So whatever you do, whatever you decide, whether it's 432 or 440, the most important thing is keep on playing, enjoy the music, and keep in tune.